Hey, it's me, ezzB. Happy New Year, everybody. As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, there is a timer counting down from 10 minutes. I wanted to talk about runes, but I was worried that I would spend all day talking about runes, and so I am forcing myself to adhere to a 10-minute timer. It's going to be very difficult to get everything out, but we will do our best. So, what we're going to be talking about today is only really going to be applicable for people who are early mid game to early end game. So you will need, in order for this to be useful to you at all, to be able to do the B10 dungeons. So Giants B10, Dragons B10, and Necro B10. If you cannot do those dungeons, then start and go all the way back to GB7. Everybody can do GB7 with the free-to-play monsters and free-to-play runes that you get from the game. You can use the hero and legendary 5-star runes and above that you get in Giants B7, which I think you might be able to get some blue 6-star runes. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Hero 5-star runes, purple 5-star runes and above, that's the only rune quality that you need to start getting into Giants B10. Do not keep anything under a... Once you can farm Giants B7, do not keep any runes that are magic runes in any set. So a magic 6-star rune, it's not worth keeping because you can get blue 6-star runes pretty easily. So once you farm Giants B7, move up to Giants B10, and then you can, spread yourself out into the different dungeons. Do them in any way that you want. It's not for me to tell you what to do. Build an R5 team or an R4 team. Do the riffs, whatever. I don't care. Come back and look at this video when you can do at least Giants B10, Necro B10, Dragons B10. If you can do the B12 dungeons, this is still useful, hopefully. If you can do all of the riffs in Triple S, I think this is still useful for you. And if you can do R5, I think this is still useful for you. But that's the area that we're going to be looking at. In general, what I have learned is speed is the most important stat in the game by far, especially for PvE. If there isn't an anti-speed mechanic in PvE content, more speed is going to help you beat the dungeon or beat the content more than anything else. And so it's sort of this philosophy in mind. I really try to think about how can I get enough speed on my monsters, and then think about some of the other stats that I need, where can I get them from. So let's start with slot 1. So slot 1, the only thing we need to keep in mind is you cannot get defense or defense percent or flat defense in the substats. So if you're running a tanky monster, bruiser, support, and defense monsters, and you want to get a lot of defense, you're not going to be able to get it from this slot, so you're going to have to make up that defense elsewhere. Pretty much every monster, unless there's a reason why you don't need speed at all. So for instance, you're maybe running Lucian with like a Konamiya, and some other, attack bar boosters so that you don't, or Leo, who doesn't need any speed. Basically, every monster in the game needs speed, so in general, I only keep and I only roll speed substats in slot 1. The only exception to that is perfectly efficient substats that have at least 2 grindable stats on them already. So if it is a purple rune and it has 8% defense, 8% attack, 8% HP, and then some other random stat, even if it isn't speed, if that other stat is highly efficient, then like a max flat HP or max flat attack, I will roll it, and I can at least gem in 10 to 15 speed after the fact if I need to. Otherwise, it's just not worth keeping. So in general, I actually try to sell every rune that doesn't have a speed substat unless the stats are just so perfectly efficient that I can't say no. Slot 2. This is a really important one. So slot 2, it has to have a speed substat. If it's perfectly efficient but it doesn't have a speed substat, 99.9% of the time, I'm going to sell it. The reason being is speed is so important that if you're running an HP percent, an attack percent, a defense percent in slot 2, you have to have speed in the substats. I think you just have to. There are a couple of exceptions, but you'll find enough great runes to fill those exceptions that for your regular runs, if it doesn't have speed in the substats, it's just not worth it. And for me, it needs to roll at least once into speed. So I need to, basically have hopefully, 12 to 16, 18 speed. And then I can throw a grind in it, and then it's great. Ideally, I want to get to a point where all of my 2, 4, 6 runes, basically require triple rolls into speeds. Ideally, I'd like my slot 2 non-speed runes to have a rune speed of at least 25. So I think if you can get an HP rune with 25 speed in the substats, I think that's a great and useful rune. And that's sort of what I'm striving for. Right now, I'll settle for my target is around 20 speed. I don't have very many runes that fit that target. I think I've only maybe got 4. But I'll keep running dungeons, and that's what I'm looking for. Slot 3, the thing that you really want to think about is your damage dealers. So you cannot get attack percent or flat attack in your substats in slot 3. But that doesn't mean that you can't get damage in slot 3, right? You can get crit rate and crit damage. So other than speed substats, I will look for high crit rate rolls and high crit damage rolls. Speed is great, but again, often it'll be your attackers that need speed the least, because there are lots of areas where maybe you set other monsters will set them up. So high crit rate, high crit damage are great in terms of slot 3. Slot 4 for me is another slot that has to have speed. There is no way around it. Again, if there is something that's perfectly efficient, so if I had a rune that was say a crit damage rune that had attack percentage, HP percentage, and crit rate percentage, and they were all +8, +8, +6, then I would roll that. But if it's 6% attack, 6% HP, 4% crit rate, then I'm selling it, because you're just going to get enough runes that you might as well just only keep the high efficiency ones. Slot 5, here it's the same general rule. I'm prioritizing speed rolls, and then it has to be basically perfectly efficient with grindable stats. At least typically 2 out of the 3 or 2 out of the 4 have to be grindable stats, ideally percentage stats. That way it's relatively easy to gem in the one stat that you're missing, and then grind, right? And slot 6, same thing, you're looking for speed, right? Because if you don't have enough speed in your substats, it doesn't matter what your other stats are, you're just going to get destroyed, whether that's in Arena or Siege or Guild Wars or RTA. So speed really is the way to go. You really need speed in slot 1, you really need speed in slot 2. For the most part, you probably actually should just be running speed in slot 2 as the main stat. If not, anything that isn't speed, you have to prioritize. You have to prioritize speed in your substats. So that's it. That's my 10-minute. That's my 10-minute rune philosophy. That's how I look at it. If you do that and you focus on prioritizing grindable stats over non-grindable stats, then you can very easily gem in and grind using R5 if and when you get there, and you can actually get some pretty decently efficient runes with not too much trouble. So hopefully that was worth it. Please let me know in the comments what you think. If you want more rune content from me, I would be happy to do more, and spending time diving into my account and actually going through what am I powering up and what am I selling and what my thresholds are. But in general, I want at least 15 to 20 speed as a minimum on every slot in my set. Okay, thanks.